Restaurant Unstoppable. Inspire, empower, and transform the industry. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, co-founder of Kitchen United, and he's also on the board of directors for Miso Robotics. He's also the CEO of Piestro. Did I do it right?
Yes.
Yes. He's a strategic board member of Ghost Kitchen Brands and several other robotics companies. He's also an equity partner at KRP and Nourish. He's here today because our boy Troy Hooper called him out. Massimo, Noja, DeMarco, my man, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I am unstoppable.
Yes,
I am
dude.
relentless.
I feel unstoppable after getting through some of those hard... you would never know my last name's Cacciatore. I struggle so hard with Italian words, but dude, I'm so excited to have you here. I've heard such great things about you. You're really challenging the industry status quo, looking into the future. You are a futurist. I know there's gonna be some really great stuff that comes out of today's conversation. But before we get into it, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us? Throwing you on the spot here.
That is, I mean, I have many, but here's to all the mad ones.
All the mad ones.
That is my mantra. It's a song also from famous English singer. I can't remember her name. Adele, I think.
Oh,
yeah, Adele.
Maybe. My pop
and he
culture
goes,
is not that great.
Here's to all the mad ones. and it's actually my soundtrack. When I go on stage, I use that.
How's that song go one more time?
No.
Okay.
I don't have the voice for it, but it's very motivating, and it just challenges you to be different, to constantly question and do things in a very different way. Where people call you mad or call you crazy, I take that as a medal, as a statement of I'm doing the right thing. Because challenging the status quo, challenging everything that's been done the same way for the last 20, 30, 40 years, to me, is the way that things move around.
I can't help but think of the quote. I'm paraphrasing here, I believe, but it's just the quote. Maybe you've heard something similar to it, but those who are crazy enough to say they can change the world are the ones that do.
Yeah, I'd go with it.
Yeah, man.
I'd go with it.
And you're doing some great stuff, man. You're really challenging the status quo. People saying that robotics aren't possible, that they'll never be able to replace humans. It's happening, and I can't wait to get into that. But that's not where your story starts. So where does it make sense to start your story?
Well, it starts from where I came from. When I was born in Italy, 7th generation in hospitality. My mom was a fantastic chef in Italy. My grandparents, they are the one that started the hotels and restaurant industry, and in a very, very interesting touristy area, packed with American and Europeans and people from all over the world. So I was born and raised between the tables and the bar of a hotel. And at 5 years old, I was allowed to start making my first cappuccino for our guests.
Wow.
And that's where the goosebumps appeared the very first time. I knew that I was all for it. I embraced it. And I developed two different passions, one from my mother and one from my grandfather. Mother for the food, being such an excellent chef and falling in love with all the foods that she was making. And grandfather, the love for people. And those are the two characteristics that, again, they give me those goosebumps. Every time I talk about food, every time I talk about meeting new people, I get excited. So hospitality, it's in my blood. I love it. I love every little single part of it. And for me, although I'm in the automation and robotics industry more than the food industry these days, hospitality comes first. So hospitality trumps everything. Hospitality comes before any machine that we put in there. And, I know we'll talk about it, but for me, it's more about helping our industry with the robots instead of replacing the jobs, but helping the operators and also the employees to do a better job by introducing these machines, these robots, and these automated solutions.
Yes, man. A great way to get this thing started. And one of the things I like to say, I like to focus on not the food, because you're opening a restaurant. I hope you can effing cook, right? Like, I hope you can do that. But can you do everything else? Do you understand what else it takes to be successful in this industry? And that's when hospitality and these lessons that you learned very early on in your life come into play. So you said that your grandfather that inspired you with hospitality. So we're reflecting back at the lessons he taught you at a young age. What were those lessons that are instilled and ingrained into you to this day?
The guest is king.
Yeah.
The guest walks in and it's a friend you haven't seen in a very long time, and you open up the door of your home and make him feel as comfortable as possible. You missed that person. You never met them, but they are the equivalent of a long-lost friend that finally comes back home, and you're pulling all the stunts out. You're cooking the best food. You're opening up the best bottle of wine that you have. You give them the best-looking chair, most comfortable chair, and you let them look outside to the lake or the view that you have from your window. That's the way you make someone feel special. And that's the whole secret of hospitality, making people feel special and allowing them to leave your venue, whether it's a restaurant or hotels or whatever, bar, in a way that they have either learned something or they've appreciated something, of that they have been really taken care in a way that they understand that we had their best interest at heart. We wanted them to have a great experience. We were not there to take their money. We were there to provide them with an experience that are going to take with them, that are going to share with their friends, with their family, with everyone else, and letting you understand what our culture is made of. The true, genuine Italian hospitality that I learned from Grandpa.
I'm so happy you're saying our culture, genuine Italian hospitality, because I have this dream project. I would love to study what hospitality means to different cultures across the country. What is genuine Italian culture in hospitality?
Exactly what I described to you. Doesn't matter if you have a hotel, a restaurant, or it's just your home. Anyone that walks into your home, you pull out the best china, you pull out the silverware, you pull out the best wines. And these people are people that you might not have met. I'm sure you've heard tons of stories of people that had, the family origins were from Italy. And after 3 or 4 generations, they went back to perfect strangers. They didn't know who these people were. And these families opened up their home to show them what their ancestors were like. And, what they're missing by not living in Italy, not being part of that culture. It's a very happy culture. Every time you sit down at a table is to celebrate something. And you celebrate it 3 times a day.
Is there something associated with Italian culture that's very unique to what, like a tradition that happens, that's a ritual within the Italian culture that you don't see in other cultures when it comes to hospitality?
It's hard to say because I'm not very, deep into many other cultures. I mean, I know them, but at a very, some friends level or past girlfriends level. So you learn a lot there. But I think that for an Italian culture, everything revolves around the kitchen. And I think it kind of like the Jewish families in the same way, right? So my best friends are Jewish from New York City, and I watched them. I spent time with their families in their kitchens on a Sunday afternoon, and it was Sunday fun day, the same way that we would do it on Tuesday in Italy.
I love that. So what was there ever an expectation for you to stay in the family business? How long were you working at the hotels before you started to go off and do your own thing?
There was never an expectation. There was a choice that was made when I came to the United States to go into the business. I've worked with the family because clearly when you live in the hotel, you have to work in a hotel.
Yeah. Why was this your choice? Well, I mean, it was your choice. We know why it was, because it was you, but what was it that made you choose this?
So let's just put it this way. I came to New York when I was 20 years old, and I fell in love with the city. In a day and a half, I knew I belonged there. I can't tell you why. I still don't know it, but I felt it that was going to be my destiny. That was going to be my home. And so once I settled in for the first couple of weeks, I had to get a job. And the first thing that I could do was to become a busboy. And I became a busboy in an Italian restaurant. And within, a week, they looked at me and it was like, looks like you know what you're doing. And I became a waiter. And then I became a manager in less than 3 months. And just because I knew how to approach people. And so I realized that there were so many Italian restaurants around the area. It was the Upper East Side, where there were lines of people waiting outside. I once saw Federico Fellini and Sofia Loren standing outside an Italian restaurant. They were probably 25 deep in the line, waiting to get into that restaurant. So one night, I had a night off, and I went to that restaurant. I tasted the food, and I could not believe it. It was not up to my standard. So the thing that came to me is like, listen, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I don't have the most talent, but I know that I can do a lot better than what these guys are doing here. So I called up a couple of friends in Italy that I went to school with. I did go to the Culinary Institute.
Okay.
And I called them up, and they were cooks in a restaurant in Milan. And I say, hey, guys, you need to come to New York because we got to open an Italian restaurant.
We got some opportunities.
And they go like, well, how much are you paying? I'm like, forget about the pay. There's so many beautiful women in New York. You're just going to be so happy. And they went, okay, send us a ticket. 3 weeks later, I sent these guys a ticket, and they moved over. A month and a half later, we ended up opening our first restaurant.
Beautiful people do flock to New York. I noticed that the last time I was there. New York, Texas, I would say Los Angeles, Miami. There's definitely some hot spots in this country, so I can back that up.
Well, listen, I came from the countryside of Italy, and there were beautiful girls over there. Italian women are gorgeous, but then you land in Manhattan, and you're just, whoa, what is going on here, right?
Yeah,
and for a 20 years old, you think about food, you think about wine, but before those two, you always.
So back to something that you said that struck a chord with me. You said the reason why you progressed so fast is because you knew how to approach people. How do you approach people? Specifically, how were you approaching people? How do you approach people in hospitality?
Big smile on your face is the first thing, right? That's the biggest business card. And then
maybe say their name correctly when you first meet them.
Yeah, exactly. I think a sense of humor is extremely important. If you can make somebody smile, you might have a great restaurant and, it's well designed and looks expensive and people come in and they don't necessarily know your menu. So they're a little bit out of their place. And, you see this couple walking in. I've done it in training so many times. Couples come in and they look at each other. It's like, honey, what are we doing? What are we ordering? I don't know. What do you want to drink? I don't know. What are you drinking? Well, I don't know what I'm going to drink because I don't know what I'm going to eat. But so I train my entire staff from GM to waiter and bartender to go and approach and start telling them what's amazing about this place. Make yourself the tool. You are the expert already.
Yeah, what
they don't know
want.
anything.
Yeah.
You know better than they know. So if you go out there and, it is as simple as going, oh my God, guys, I can't believe you're here tonight. Stacy's behind the bar. She makes these incredible mojitos. If you walk out of here without trying one of them, I believe you'll be missing out a lot. If it's okay with you, I'm going to bring you 2 of those. If you don't like them, you can throw them at me. I'm not going to charge you, but I believe you need to try them. What is a guest going to say? Unless they don't like mojitos. Unless they don't like mojitos, and it could be, oh, you don't like a mojito. You know what? There is this burning mandarin that Pablo's doing that is insane. We already won 3 awards with that. You've got to try. Let me just bring you some.
Control the conversation.
The whole thing. Control the experience.
Yeah, the experience.
Right?
They're there to be entertained, or to get the experience, be the experience.
Not only. I taught my teams that they can change lives any given day by the approach that they have with their guests. People come in and they might be on the verge of a breakup. People might want to do something radical just because they're in a bad mood. They might want to go back to their office and fire that one person because they overheard something crazy and they say, no, I can't keep that person. And they just react to it. instead of taking the time of really doing a little bit more investigating or thinking. But if you take them out of that really bad mood that they're in, and all they're thinking while they're having that lunch is go back and fire that person, and they just keep thinking, they're playing that movie in their head, you take them out of that movie for 1 second, let them have an amazing experience during that lunch, their mood is going to be in a very different place. They're probably going to think about it differently. And when they go back to the office, they're not going to be so angry, not going to be so upset. And they're not just going to act. They're going to think about it and say, you know what? I had such a great day. Why ruin it with firing somebody? Let me look into this a little bit more. Same thing, a couple that comes in that doesn't know what to talk about. They've been married for 30 years. They come into your restaurant. They don't know what to talk about anymore. Give them something to talk about, whether it's you, your personality, or something that you and your chef have prepared for them special.
Yes.
Let them talk about something because they haven't talked to each other. Now they find something that they get excited about it. At that time, guess what happens? They might go home, make babies. I don't know. It is whatever it is, right? But bring them back.
Yeah,
people that have been together for a long time, that doesn't mean that they don't have anything else to say, even if they have been together for a long time. Find something. So you can change their lives.
Yeah.
Because you're entertaining them.
Yeah, you're making me think. You're sparking so many memories and so many of the conversations I've had, and you make me think of this one person I was talking about. The true role, the mastery of a bartender isn't how good they can make the drinks. It's how they can connect people at the bar and entice conversation and bring people together, and just being there and just coordinating and just like you're talking about, just creating this experience. And you can change someone's life in that moment. You can introduce somebody who's sitting right shoulder to shoulder. Who people are. People who sit down in a bar don't know who's around them.
Yep.
Be a connector. Take it to that next level. Give an F, right? Really care about that moment that you're curating in that time, and you can change lives. It's so powerful. It's so true. I love that.
Yeah, bartender have done a lot of introduction to their patrons.
Yeah.
And there's so many stories of people that got married because they met at a bar.
So right now is a good time. So you have this conversation, you call your buddies back in Italy, you said, boys, it's time to get on a plane. We got work to do in New York City. Do you open a restaurant?
I did.
Okay. What was the name of that restaurant?
Amici Miei on West Broadway in Houston.
And how long was that restaurant there?
3 years.
3 years.
And then I sold.
And what is the year? And at this point when you open it?
That is 1989.
1989. Now we're going to get in our jet plane. We're going to buckle up. We're going to zoom to 30,000 feet. Take us on a journey without getting into any detail, just the stops you made along the way.
Amici Miei became extremely successful. Investors start coming in and say, we need to open more location. We need to go to Miami. We need to go here, there, and there. I ended up opening 4 restaurants in Manhattan in 6 years. Great restaurants, always Italian. One was Italian and French. And that was, I don't know.
4 restaurants in 8 years?
No, 4 restaurants in 6 years.
In 6 years.
Yeah, I lived in New York for 6 years. And then I married a lovely girl from California, brought me out here to Los Angeles. And I was like, okay, how am I going to go back? So we sold everything out there and we started businesses out in California.
And this is 1994.
Yep.
Okay, what happens in 1994? You come to Los Angeles?
Yeah, opened my very first restaurant out here in Los Angeles.
What was that? Italian restaurant, I presume?
Italian restaurant called Il Terrazzo with my best friend from New York City, Long Island boy, Jewish boy that looks like my brother, talks like me, and people always think that we are real brothers. And so we launched a restaurant together.
Okay.
And we wanted to do that experience out here in California because it was so different for us.
So this is your second, your fourth. You said you 4 restaurants.
Yeah, this was the fifth restaurant. Yep.
Now that you're kind of a seasoned restaurateur, you've got, you grew up in this hotel family. Anything you're doing differently at this point? Have you learned lessons? Are you doing things differently, or have you evolved?
Yeah, the big difference was the learning of all the the numbers and the cost, the food
Let's
cost.
Let's bookmark
and that.
this because I got distracted. Let's get back on our airplane. It's 1994. Zooming back up to 30,000 feet. You had Il Terrazzo. Did I say that correctly?
Il Terrazzo.
Il Terrazzo. I'm so horrible. Okay, so 1994, you opened that restaurant. What happens thereafter?
We had it running for 3 years. My business partner became ill, and for some of the reasons we ended up selling the restaurant. And I had a strange idea because I grew up in the hotel business. I wanted to understand how different was the hospitality and the hotel specifically here in the United States versus Italy. And so I went and did an experience with the Ritz Carlton out here in Marina del Rey. And I became a director of food and beverage. I had a fantastic time. I learned so much. At that time, the Ritz Carlton was still the premier hotel company.
And what year is this? Timestamp this for me.
19. Oof, boy. It's been a long time. So
you said how many years did you own the
97.
Restaurant? 97. Okay, 97. My mind works chronologically, and I like to know how long it takes people to execute things. So you're at Ritz Carlton. You become the director of food and beverage. How long are you at the Ritz Carlton?
I was about a year and a half.
Year and a half?
Yeah.
Okay.
So. And then because the crazy person I am, I wanted to know more. So I ended up going to a country club, a very, very private, very, very special country club called Hillcrest Country Club here in Los Angeles. Same thing I did almost a couple of years there. I did a fantastic experience. And then when after the 2 years, my mom got ill. She was running the hotel, so my then wife and I decided to go back and run the hotel for 3 years.
In Italy?
In Italy, yeah.
So you're doing that until 2004. What happens in 2004?
Before I even got on the plane to move back, because she was from California, so she was wearing a turtleneck in June. She wanted to come back. She wanted to come back to LA, and of course I missed it. I missed it too. But before I even got to LA, I received a call from somebody that said, "Hey, one of my best friends," what was a call from London. And the gentleman says, one of my best friends stayed at your hotel, and he knows your wife is from Los Angeles, and you've talked about going back to Los Angeles. Do you have something lined up? And I say, no, who's your friend? And he told me they actually got married in our hotel, and they went back and told his friends such great things. It just so happened that the guy was in charge of human resources for the Compass Group.
Compass Group, okay.
Yeah. And they said, we think that we have a perfect job for you if you go back to LA. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going back to LA. It's like, well, can we set up an interview? I'm like, who is it with? And they say, Wolfgang Puck.
Oh.
And here we go. There's the goosebumps again, right?
Yeah.
I will never say enough good things about Wolfgang. He is the most incredible human being. He's the most talented of people, most charitable. I mean, the guy is...
We're going to give you plenty of times to say as many good things about Wolfgang. But what happened after that?
So I worked with him for about 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And the only reason I left Wolfgang, I always say to people that I would work for him for free if I had enough money to support myself in a really good way. But Sam Nazarian came knocking at the door.
Who came knocking?
Sam Nazarian from SBE.
Okay.
And so
SBE?
SBE.
Got it.
SLS Hotels, Katsuyas,
Gotcha.
C3 right now. So Sam made it very, very convincing that I needed to go and work with him.
Okay.
And so I did.
Okay.
And so I did.
And that was around 2008, almost 12 years ago.
Yeah, about end of 2007, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens? You go to work for him. What happens there?
We opened a whole bunch of great restaurants and nightclubs. We had a fantastic time until... the company had a little bit of an issue financially, and so a lot of the top tier were asked to leave, and so that's what happened. But it was a great experience. I mean, we got to open all of the Katsuyas. Katsuyas were my babies.
Got it.
I call them my little Japanese babies.
Gotcha. Okay. So what happens? What year is it when you start to lose your position with the SBE group?
2009. It was during the
recession.
The recession.
Got it. When do you start to gear up? What after you recover from the recession? What's new? What's going on in your life?
So while that was happening, I decided to launch a consulting company.
Okay.
That would help restaurateurs get back in gear. There was a lot of issues because of the recession, and people really needed help. And there's so many restaurant brands out there that have, 2, 3, 4, 5 restaurants, and they still, they were still hurting they lost a lot of their business and they didn't know how to bounce back. And so I thought that with my experience, I could give a lot. It was incredibly successful. I brought in a very talented partner, Dana Hataitam. She's actually on the executives of Ghost Kitchen Brands right now. She was also not in paper, but she was a co-founder at Kitchen United with me. The whole idea of Kitchen United started on her coffee table, actually. And so her and I started designing restaurants and building restaurants and launching them for people that needed to, whether it was a revamp or changing. I mean, we went in and we took over a restaurant and we worked overnight, 24 hours a day to put it back into place with new design and new technology and all of that for 4 or 5 days. So in 4 or 5 days, we turned the restaurant around, turned the concept around, hire people, launch it, and then hand the keys to the brand.
So this is Kitchen United. This is
no, that was not Kitchen United. That was called Positive Hospitality.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Positive
Kitchen United came later.
So anything in between Positive Hospitality and Kitchen United?
No, not really.
Okay. When did Kitchen United come?
Kitchen United, we started working on in 2016 and was launching early 2017.
Okay. And then anything between that and now? 17 and now?
A million different things.
A million different things. Let's shelf it from there. Let's start to drill down. I think you give us a ton. I don't know how we're gonna squeeze this all in, but we're gonna do our best.
Well, you want to know why? You want to know why Kitchen United was born?
Why was Kitchen United?
Kitchen United was born because as Dane and I were designing all these great restaurants, we realized that at that point, which was about 7 years ago, we never designed a restaurant that was optimized for the delivery. And with all the massive amounts of orders that were coming in at lunch and dinner time through all the different platforms, Grubhub, Uber Eats, and so on, the restaurants were struggling. They didn't have the room. They didn't have a second line for the off-premise. They didn't have the room to set up all the containers. They didn't have the shelves to put all the bags and everything else. And they didn't have the place where the drivers could come in and pick up the food. And also they had a packed dining room, so all the orders were coming in lunch and dinner time, and they had to shut down the platform and not taking those orders coming in because otherwise they would make their people in the restaurant wait for an hour for their food, right? Yeah. So they shut it down. So left tons of money on the table.
So you realized this in 2017, like 3 years before the rest of the world?
No. 2016.
It took us.
Yeah, it was probably end of 15, beginning of 16. We actually designed a couple of restaurants that way, but then we realized that there had to be a better way. There were so many restaurants that were going through the same issues. And one day we decided that we were going to find a location where we were going to put a whole bunch of these restaurants and let them cook the food, and we take care of everything else.
Okay, let's go all the way back to where we started on our airplane ride. It was way back to 1994. You opened this restaurant. I believe 4 restaurants in 6 years. Now it's 1994. You opened the Italian restaurant in
Los Angeles.
Your partner gets sick. Take us to that point where what did you learn up to this point that you weren't doing yet in your restaurants that you learned with the first, say, 4 restaurants in New York City?
Systems was the biggest challenge, right?
Yeah.
I'd learned a lot through the restaurants, but again, they were run with the heart, with the hospitality. So the margins were not what we wanted them to be. Our top of the line sales were through the roof.
Yeah.
But we're also buying drinks. We were making margaritas in Italian restaurants.
Sales were up, but expenses were up too.
Expenses were up too, right? Yeah. But we were living the life. Yeah. We were having a hell of a great time.
So what changes in your business did you start to make to change that? To be more focused on systems and profitability?
It's an eye-opener. You realize that you have ran your business the way that it felt right, but it was not right. Because ultimately, all the people that are working for you, you're responsible for. And if you get to a point where you cannot make your payroll because you didn't account for something right, and then all of a sudden you got to pay taxes and you haven't paid too much attention to that, that is a big eye opener. It happened to me. It happened that I had to pay a whole bunch of money in taxes, and I didn't know how I was going to pay them without taking the money off of my employees. That was the biggest smackdown because I love the people that work for me, and I would not want them to wait one day.
Yeah, you know, I learned a lesson. I got in trouble with taxes at one point too. It's easy if you're not putting money away just regularly for taxes. Like, it gets away from you. You forget how much money you're making. You're not tracking money. Profit First has been a game changer for me using this Profit First money management system. And the mentality is 20% of every dollar you make is not your money. You can't spend that. You have to put it away for the IRS. Get a checking account every month. Whatever money came in, allocate it and take 20% of that total revenue. Just put it away. It's not yours. What did you do? What was your process for never making sure this happened to you again?
Can I just make you laugh for a second?
Please.
I'm Italian. You know, when I realized that I had to pay sales taxes, I'm like, sales taxes? We don't do that in Italy. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But once you realize that you got to be careful with your taxes, you really got to. It's easy for it to get away from you. What did you start doing differently to make sure that never happened again?
No, it was about not really giving away the house just to make sure that everybody was happy to come back to your place, right? And again, I think that understanding that my employees needed to pay their bill, and if I was late for them, they could be thrown out of their apartments.
Yeah.
Or they might not have enough money to, put food on the table for their families.
It's your responsibility.
That is your responsibility. Yeah. That's 100% your responsibility. So as I say, it was a big smackdown for me, and it really put me in my place, and, very humbly went back and figured out a way that I was still going to do what I was doing, but also making sure that I had a nice stash away for my employees. So I was living the life. I was spending the money. I was going on vacations too, right? So
I'm assuming you figured it out. You're still here. So what did you figure out? How did you start doing things differently to execute on what you realized you had to do?
Well, first of all, hiring somebody to do the accounts, right? The accountability, the receivables and all that. But also not giving away, we were giving out things on charity. We were involved in every little league. We were involved in every hospital event and all of that stuff. And we were sending food over. And, at the end, it all comes back and hits you that, you have to pay your vendors. I'm like, why did I spend so much money this month? Oh, yeah, because I did that or because I did that. Oh, why is the liquor cost so high? Well, you got to stop making picture of margaritas for people as soon as they walk in the door.
Yeah. But, there is something to be said about being generous and having faith that generosity comes back to you some way. But you have to track it. You can't just assume. You have to pay attention to what money is going out. So what did you develop systems for that, or does this come later in life, do you think?
No, I brought in a very talented accountant that really showed me how it's done.
Did they change any behaviors in you?
No.
Okay.
No.
So eventually, you mentioned your partner gets sick. He gets ill. The partnership dissolves. The restaurant dissolves, and you decide that you want to see what hospitality is like, hotel specifically in the United States, and you choose the Ritz Carlton, which is a great brand to be a part of. Hertz Schultze, past guest on the show, love that guy. Did you get to work directly with him?
Nope.
No. What did you learn at the Ritz Carlton?
The credo. The motto, it's like we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. What could be better than that?
Yeah. What does that communicate to you?
That you need to take pride in what you do. If you're there to be hospitable, do it with tremendous pride. And if you look back at some of the misconception of what a waiter is, people think about that's a poor people job. That's people that can, they don't have another job. They need to do that job. It's a tough one to do.
Is that the same in Italy? Is that
culture? It is. I want to say that if you are a young guy and you're going out and you tell a girl that you're a waiter, she probably won't date you.
That's too bad. So what's the case here? Why is that the case? Why is there no pride in this work that we do?
I don't know if there is no pride. There's different things. The interesting thing is that when you see the Italians come into the U.S. and working in Italian restaurants, especially in New York City, right, where hospitality is king, you see that these waiters, they understand their power because they have such a big knowledge. They can talk to you about anything from timballo di ricotta to the vermentino, from the terrazze retiche to anything, because it's in their culture. They know it. They know it. They don't have to make it up. So they have this such a big knowledge. They're almost like a cicerone for anybody that comes in and sits at your table. So people would come in and listen to the stories of waiters and just walked out and was like, this was incredible. Such a great experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the food.
Yeah.
It was about the entire experience.
I love that. So back to the Ritz Carlton, working, you learned it's ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the culture the Ritz Carlton was able to create. Did you learn other key elements about how to create culture or just business in general under this group?
Not that I can think of. Okay. What I learned there, I learned a lot more about French cuisine, because there was a very talented chef named Chef Gerard Rossi, and Michelin star. And then there was a pastry chef that then became one of the, a couple of years later he left and he became the winner of the Bocuse d'Or. And so incredibly talented people. And then there was a young, very young, I'm going to say it again, very shy young woman that I hired as a assistant pastry chef for Gerard. And this woman's first name just happened to be Giada, as in Giada de Laurentiis.
Okay.
And it was, just watching her grow through the years was just unbelievable. When I remember that she barely talked to anybody, she spoke to me a lot because we communicated in Italian. On Thanksgiving, she brought in her whole entire family, including the greatest man, Dino de Laurentiis. And so it was an incredible learning experience there. I learned tons about the French cuisine, which I really didn't know.
Okay. So I know you made a stop back home in Italy. You said from there you had an opportunity in 2004 to become the HR from Compass Group approaches you for an opportunity with Wolfgang Puck. Where does it make sense to go to next? Is it worth hovering over your experience back home in Italy? Anything significant that we can garner from your experience back home?
I don't know. I think that we need to go forward to really understand what drives me today.
I'm really excited to kind of to dive into your businesses that you built. I want to get into that, but we can't just skip over the lessons you learned from Wolfgang Puck. You said he nothing but respect and admiration for this guy, right? What were the biggest lessons he taught you? One or two.
I want to say the man is almost selfless. He is so incredibly generous, is so giving, is so charitable, and he has done so much, not just for the world, but for his employees, for his company, for everyone that's ever been around him. They know what I mean. It's just something that you don't find in any company. The man is a true leader and someone that you go to battle for any given day. And I also want to say that, his commitment to his guest, his king.
Mm-hmm.
He would go to every single table in every restaurant. He would go to 4 restaurants in one night. I went with him, and we would go from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant to restaurant, and he would make sure that he go to talk to every single table, whether they were local that he's known for 20 years or people that came from Australia, Europe, or China. It didn't matter. He would go to the table, say a joke, say something funny. Some people might not even know who he was and how famous he was, and yet he would go over and entertain him and give him a piece of him every single day. And that's it. He did that tirelessly.
What was he executing in doing this?
Genuine hospitality.
Yeah.
Making people understand that he was there for them. He always asked them if they enjoyed what they were having, if there was anything that they were thinking that they might have had that he could actually go and make in the kitchen. Yep. I've seen him jump behind the kitchen counter and make things for people.
I want to get to the point. Thank you for diving into that. I want to get to the point where we start talking about Kitchen United. Before we do that, you spent a good chunk of your career helping struggling restaurants. And I'm curious, before we kind of get into your latest projects, you were helping restaurants with 2, 3, or 4 locations kind of bounce back. What was the common denominator in these restaurants that were, floundering at this point in their stage, and what were the most common things you would do to help them bounce back? So I think there's lessons in here that our listeners can really benefit from before we move forward.
Yeah, I think training was one of the most important keys, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these restaurateurs, they didn't have the most talented employees just because they didn't take the time to screen the right employees or they didn't take the time to train them properly. So their turnover was massive. So they would spend so much money training a new employee that then in turn would not stay, right? And so when you're training somebody, it means that somebody in a higher position in that restaurant, whether it's a general manager or the chef, is taking time out of the operation to actually teach and train.
Yes.
And so that's a ton of money that is wasted.
Okay. So what were you doing? How would you help them get better at this? Or how would you help them not lose as much money training?
Well, one of the first things that we always proposed as in the engagement was an HR training. How you hire, how you interview, how you get the best out of, the best answers out of people, and what to keep in consideration. And so that was extremely important. People were getting in trouble because they were doing the stupidest things during the interviews. Even the way that they stored the resumes, right? The people walking in, and then I see them taking the resume and say, okay, thank you, we'll take care of it, and they'll throw them in the garbage. That's no, it's against the law, right? So people didn't know that, and they ended up finding themselves, with a lot of fines, whether it's because they didn't have the postings at the bar posted right, they didn't have a ramp for the handicapped, they didn't, all things that brought me back to that point of where I'm running my restaurant with my heart. So I felt for them, and I wanted to show them what I learned and how you could do better, so that little amount that you were getting, you were getting by at the end of the month, it would get a little thicker, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was our goal. And then, designing the menus and creating using the same type of ingredients for a number of dishes. So you had cross utilizations. People thought that if they had 1 million different ingredients, made their menu better. If they had a huge menu, made their restaurant more interesting, and it was never the case.
Yeah, what happens when you do that? When you have this massive menu?
Just tons of waste.
Yeah, tons of waste and tons of training too. Right? Like, back to that whole training issue, like you making it more difficult. You're making your work more difficult to train that person up. Keep it simple. Do a few things really well. Right?
Yeah, and if you think about a busy restaurant and you have a large number of menu items, you don't do the all day. I don't know if you know what an all day is, right?
What is an all day?
An all day is when, you have a whole bunch of orders that are coming in, and you look at it and you go, oh, great, I have 4 calamari here, and I have 7 pasta fettuccine, and I have, 3 of the chickens. And so you do them all together. You don't cook one at a time, right? If you have so many ingredients and so many different items, the chances are you're doing a lot of different things, and that takes a long time. Right? It takes the same time to make a pasta for 1 and a pasta for 5.
Yeah.
But if you make it in a big pan,
talking about units of work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you're gonna do the work, you might as well be efficient with it and do more. It's the same argument. If you're opening a restaurant that has 10 seats, you have to do the same amount of work to open that restaurant if it has 150 seats.
Correct.
You're still doing the same amount of work. I don't know. I get the analogy. What are your thoughts on that analogy of, like, if you're opening a restaurant, you might as well open a big one?
I go the other way.
Okay. I agree with you on that. Why is that the case?
It's just because you have a better control. If you want to open your own restaurant, now, if you're thinking of opening a chain or a group of restaurants, that's a whole different story, right? And then you have to have the systems in place. You need to make sure you do it right the first time, because it's good to be successful once. You could be lucky. You do the second time, you might not be as lucky, but you could get lucky again. On the third one, you're screwed. You're done. You're finished.
And you have to have butts in seats, and it's much easier to fill 10 seats and then scale into 150. But if you start with 150 and people don't know about you, then you're just throwing money away because that's lost real estate.
Well, and the other thing is that people don't know how to market themselves.
Yeah.
They didn't. Now it's getting better, and with the digital era and digital marketing, although there's still a lot to be said about that, but people really didn't know how to market themselves.
Yeah. Did you help that?
Yes, absolutely.
What was your general, like the most common advice that you'd give people, the most basic things you'd give people to help them turn around their marketing?
Well, community engagements.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that we work with were local restaurants that you went around town and you start asking, hey, do you know about these guys? And no, where are they? They're 2 blocks down the street. Oh, I've never been there. How long have you lived here? All my life. And you haven't been there. Food is amazing, by the way. They go like, really? And so, just understanding that if you're into community, you need to leverage that community.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about the Chamber of Commerce or anything like that, but be part of the community, engage the community in a lot of different ways. And right now, digitally, you can do it a lot easier than you used to do. Right? Before, we used to send, when we did the consulting, we always send out street teams, young boys and young girls that were out of school and they needed a few hours to fill in, and we'll send them around and and talk to them, being the ambassadors of the brands. Sometimes bring samples, not necessarily all the time, but it was very interesting that people did not know that this type of restaurants existed in that area.
Why young people? Why were you targeting young people to be the ambassadors?
Just because there were people that could come to work 2 or 3 hours on the fly. They would call in and say, hey, can I come in? It was almost like the original gig worker, right?
And honestly, I think that, and I think young people, and feel free to disagree with me, they're the early adopters. You see it with social media. Whatever young people are doing with social media, 5-10 years later, that's the new hot thing. People tend to trust the opinion when it comes to like what's happening now, what's cool, where to go, what to do. They follow the young people.
Yeah.
Was that part of your strategy?
No, mine was really, I identified that as a source of labor that you could get very easily, and you could let them pick what they wanted, and they get so excited because not only I paid them, but also let them have the food for free.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so that got them excited because they fell in love with one of the dishes, and will they go out on the street and go out to an office and talk to that executive assistant that orders 8 or 10, dishes or 15 dishes on a Friday or Thursday, they would get her excited, right?
Yeah, I love
that. If you have that conviction, you go over and you're a young boy and you say, you haven't had that fettuccine, blah, 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 blah. And she go, no, I love Italian food. How come? It's like, oh, well, you should come over, right?
Well, I think the word relativity comes to my mind, and relative to a young person, 18, 19, 20 years old, whatever the age is, to get paid and to have a free meal, like, that's a big deal. Like that, you're great. You're going to be enthusiastic about that. You're going to be excited about that versus somebody who maybe be 35. They might have eaten more. They might have a more broad palate. Right. They might not appreciate a free meal as much. They're less likely to be enthusiastic about that. And the enthusiasm is what sells.
Yeah, and we actually took it one step further. We had the young employees test new items and new menus and see, because a lot of the restaurants were never catered for the younger generation. Mm-hmm. They all had a certain type of menu that would appeal to a broad spectrum, but never anybody had done anything for that group, right? The 15 to 20 years old.
Yeah.
And now we started testing some interesting things, like that, some fried chicken sandwiches with different flavor, kimchi, or like Korean style, or and these kids would go like, "Are you kidding me? This is perfect for us, right?" And so on Saturday afternoon, we do 50% on it, and they bring their friends and they come over and have the kimchi fried chicken sandwich.
Yeah. What are you accomplishing by giving them 50% and just getting it out to their friends? Are you just trying to get to grow awareness?
Get exposure, get them hooked, right? Yeah. It's like a drug. Once they fall in love with it, they're going to come back for more.
Yeah, and you're reinforcing a very early lesson that if you ever give anything away, don't donate money. Give away food.
Yep.
Donate in the form of food. You have to put food in mouths. That's your marketing.
Yeah, and look, the one other thing that I did always, and I will always do, is in my restaurant, anybody that comes in and is a vendor, if you are my plumber, if you're my electrician, if you're the guy that takes care of my dishwasher, every time you come in and you service my machines, you're going home with food.
Why?
Because if, first of all, you never have a problem on a Monday afternoon. It usually happens on a Friday or Saturday night or on the weekend when nobody works. And if you're losing your power or if your refrigerator's not working, nobody's coming unless these guys become your family. And so you call him on a Saturday afternoon and say, hey, Joe, my walk-in cooler just died. And he goes, I'm on my way. I was going to go to my kids' little T-ball game, but I'm coming over.
Yeah. He's going to get fed.
No, I don't get fed. He got fed the whole entire time. It doesn't matter. If he comes over and he's got to change
what goes
not a
around
light bulb,
around.
but
yeah.
No, it's just making them feel like they're part of the process. They would go home and it's not just about this, but they go to the kids' T-ball game. Yeah. They're sitting there watching the game. Who they're talking to? Right? Yeah. They're talking to their friends. It's like, oh, by the way, I know this restaurant, I take care of, their refrigeration. So we should go one night, right? Yeah. Because it's just absolutely amazing. What happens when they come down? They come down, they pay for the food, but they get a free bottle of wine or something, right? So it's that constant touch. You tell one person who tells one person who tells one person. And the more people you have that are happy with what you have provided, the more people you'll have coming
talking and spreading the word. I love it. Massimo, you've been patient. I know you really want to talk about Kitchen United. I think we've reached the point where we can start to really dive deep into this. So go ahead.
I think that's, Kitchen United is just almost like a springboard there because that's what happened during Kitchen United and after Kitchen United has really been what I can't wait to get up every morning and do.
So to set the stage again, 2016, Kitchen United, you identified that there's no restaurant that's optimized for delivery, and you see a huge opportunity. Take us to that point. I don't want to put words into your mouth. What's going through your mind? Why are you starting Kitchen United? What's your mission?
The mission was to help restaurateurs like me getting the maximum out of these third-party delivery systems that, as I was saying earlier, unfortunately, they couldn't take advantage of. Okay.
So all the way back to 2016, you're seeing third-party platforms. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about these platforms at this point?
They have done a lot of great things for the restaurant. I know that they're expensive and, sometimes they're too expensive, but still they have helped move the ball forward with technology.
Okay.
And the implementation of those DSPs has helped people.
What's a DSP?
Deliver service provider.
Gotcha.
So Uber, Grubhub, and so on. And so these people have got acquainted with picking up their phone and being able to get the food by just, ordering on their phone. Wasn't there before. Mm-hmm. Now it's so simple. If people get used to it, that propelled the entire technology revolution in the restaurant.
Yeah. So you, with Kitchen United, recognize that there isn't a resource available to restaurants to maximize their return with these third-party platforms, and you wanted to be that.
Yeah.
What was your strategy?
So we provided an optimized space, very small space that could be manned by 1 or 2 people, that was fully dedicated into the production of food, and we would take care of everything else.
So your initial identification was that there needs to be a whole separate line for delivery. Yep. How did you come to that conclusion?
Just because of all those orders that were coming into the restaurant that they could not execute.
Yeah.
It was impossible. People tried it.
Bottleneck issue.
It was a bottleneck.
Yeah.
People tried it. And again, they didn't have the space to put the bags and the containers and the sauces and the accoutrements and the plasticware that goes with it. And then they didn't have the room for the drivers to come in. I once sat in a restaurant where I got bumped like 5 times within 20 minutes by the drivers because it was so close to the bar, and the drivers were going over to the bar to grab their food. And I turn around at one point, I'm almost getting pissed. And then I see the worst scene possible. The guy reaches over the bar to grab the food. It's got stain all over his armpit.
Oh, man.
And he's putting it on the face of this young man that's sitting at the bar eating his meal. And I saw his face, and I'm like, no, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, of course.
And so, and the second thought was, here's the biggest challenge that you have when you have a restaurant that you love, and it's on the west side of Los Angeles, and you live on the east side or just across the 405. People don't cross the 405 to go out to dinner.
Okay.
That's a big problem, right? So if you have a restaurant that you love and you really want to have, let's just say Cantor's Deli, but you're in Santa Monica, you can't get Cantor's Deli. Or in Pasadena, you can get Cantor's Deli. So we open up in Pasadena. We bring Cantor's Deli. Why? Because we wanted to be able to bring the food as close as possible to the consumer. And that's the trend, and it keeps going. And then you'll see, we'll talk about it in just a little bit, what the goal is, really bringing the food as close as possible to the consumer. So the first step was the ghost kitchen. Mm-hmm. So bringing a ghost kitchen in an area where that brand or that restaurant is not present, and be able to provide it to someone that wanted to have it at that point, and all they had to do is go in on their phone and say, okay, I'm ordering Cantor's Deli right now.
So I'm curious, when if I'm picking up my phone, I'm going to order food, I'm new to the area, maybe I'm at my Airbnb, and I do like kitchen, food, restaurant near me, I see all these options. Am I clicking on the restaurant that is the original OG restaurant and thinking that it's coming from there, but is it redirecting in the back end?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, it's being redirected. You are you're geofenced.
Okay.
So geofence mean that you're gonna be directed to the closest outlet of that brand, whether it's a ghost kitchen or a restaurant, it doesn't matter. It's the closest because the algorithm calculates which one is the closest to your position right now.
So as far as the user interface goes, if I have these multiple ghost kitchens, do you, as the consumer, never know where that ghost kitchen is? Are you, as far as you're concerned, like, is it coming from that original location? Like, at what point, I guess, I don't know, in the back end setting this all up is, I guess, where I get kind of confused. If you're a restaurant owner, you want to recreate this, you develop a whole second line out of a commissary kitchen or a ghost kitchen. Do I create a Google, like,
no, you don't have to do anything. You let us do it.
Okay. So what would you do in that situation?
We provide the technology. We provide something that actually, at Kitchen United, we did something, I want to say, first of all, we were the first ghost kitchen in the United States.
Before they were, what were you calling it?
We didn't even call it. It was like, we're setting out a whole bunch of restaurants for delivery. Yeah. Right? It was off-premise. Only. We thought about off-premise kitchens or something like that. And then somebody come out and just give it a name. Okay. And we went with it. Okay. Right? People started calling dark kitchen before the ghost kitchen. Yeah. And we were like, okay, that's fine, right? Yeah. It really doesn't matter. So no. So we set up everything. You as a restaurateur, you have just to say, okay, I'm bringing 2 of my people. I'm going to put them on that line that you designed for me. I'm going to tell you tell me as a restaurateur, you tell me you need a griddle, 6-burner, whatever you need. You need a refrigerator, you need a freezer, you need that. We have it all set up for you. You come in. We turn on the gas, we turn on the light, and you go to work because you have your printer or your KDS. Your order are coming in. If your employee is already training one of your restaurants, it doesn't feel the difference. It's still, it's got all the ingredients in front of him. It's got the printer or the KDS. It's executing against it. The beauty is that it doesn't have to stray away from doing the food. My goal was let the cook do what they do best, which is cooking the food. I don't need them to go around and cleaning. I don't need to look for pots and pans and plates and dishes and go wash this and wash that, clean the filters at the end of the day. If I'm paying somebody $25 an hour because it's a talented grill cook, I don't want them to spend 2.5 hours cleaning the hood and all of that stuff or washing the floor.
How many lines would be in one unit?
In Kitchen United, when we opened, we had 13 kitchens.
So you had 13
lines for 13 brands.
For 13 brands.
Yeah.
And were you using one location for multiple brands, or would you do a site location for one brand only, and they would own that space?
they would earn on their little space, right? Their line was dedicated to that brand.
Got it.
Right? But in the ordering system, when you went to Grubhub or Uber Eats, you would see both. You would see the brand popping up, and you would see Kitchen United and Kitchen United Mix. And then we created our own technology, which is Kitchen United Mix, where you could go on a website or you could go on your phone and you just go into Kitchen United Mix and you could mix and match. My
Order
idea,
a salad from this brand,
correct,
a sandwich from that brand, and have it all come at once.
So this is how I raised my money, because nobody wanted to give me money, because they were like, "You're crazy. This is crazy," and I'm like, "Yes, thank you for that.
Crazy
Call me crazy. Yeah. I'm the bad one." And so the moment they say that, I'm like, "Great. Here's the deal. Now you are home. You have 2 kids and a wife. You want to have a pasta, but your wife wants sushi." And the kids, one wants pizza and one wants hot dogs. What do? You're going to go on Grubhub? Sure. What are you going to do? 4 different orders. What? And maybe you don't find the sushi on Grubhub. You have to go to Uber Eats. So there's 4 different orders, 4 different delivery charges, and then they're all going to be delivered at 4 different times.
4 different tax, or the tax.
All of that. Different charges.
Different
right?
times. Yeah.
Different times. You have that half hour maybe of family times that you can sit and your food is not there. The kids got there. Your wife's got lost. Yeah. And so how do you do that?
Or the driver ate it.
Yeah, the driver ate it. Or, you have half of your French fries because somebody decided to dip in. And so my goal was like, look, if you want these 4 things, you come into Kitchen United Mix, you pick up your phone and you order all 4 things, 1 delivery charge, 1 click of the button, and they get there all at the same time.
So there's multiple lines in one location.
Yes.
So was that the plan from the very beginning?
Yes.
And how many different locations would you have?
Well, different cities. We built different locations.
But you would have.
Cities.
But the whole idea was to get locations close to the consumer, so it would have to go shorter distances. So you'd have multiple locations in multiple cities.
Yes.
Okay. And would you have multiple concepts in multiple locations?
Yes.
And how? Where? This is still going to this day. When did the idea was 2016. When did you first execute?
We launched in 2017.
2017. Yep. Immediately, just take us through it. What was working, what wasn't working, what did you learn the hard way? What came from this?
Let's say everything was working and everything wasn't working.
Okay.
No, I think that the really interesting thing that wasn't working was the marketing, because the brands that came in thought that because they now had a present, that people would immediately start ordering food at massive in a massive way, because
instantly they thought food would be like.
But they didn't understand that they still had to do marketing. It wasn't different than a restaurant. You still need to get out there and let people know. Yeah, Kitchen United would do all the events. We would do events outside where we put all the restaurants outdoors and introduce the community to this thing.
But even so, you're still providing relief to the original location's line. So I'm a restaurant operator.
Sure.
I'm doing a huge takeout. I'm known for my burgers. Burgers travel great. And all of a sudden I'm getting a bunch of deliveries. I can't keep up with delivery in-house. I have to shut off all my third-party options because this is overwhelming my line. You approach this restaurateur. You say, Mr. Restaurateur, I have your solution. You need a second line. You need a line dedicated to delivery. Wouldn't you just, from that point, once they develop their line, all those orders coming through would just get pushed to this new location?
Not necessarily, because we didn't put all the location necessarily next to that restaurant. Maybe it was next to one restaurant, but we had 10, 14 restaurants, and so the other 14 restaurants could be far away. And our goal wasn't really to just fix what was going on in that restaurant. We put processes in place for them to execute faster.
Okay.
We show them, because what we did in the ghost kitchens, using that type of equipment, they ended up installing it into the restaurant so that you could actually take more of those orders, right?
Do you mean an example of the different...
A rational oven or an air fryer that maintains, fries crispier, hotter, longer time, and they're better for delivery, so that when you get your fries are not soggy.
Yeah.
So But then, having a rational oven where you can actually execute 6 different type of food in one small oven, you have 6 different layers, and you can put pizza, you can put salmon, you can put grilled chicken in each one of those layers. They're all in the same chamber, but you don't get a spillover of smell or fragrance or anything.
Way more efficient too.
It's computerized.
Too, yeah.
You put in the recipe, you program the recipe, you pop it in, and so because the pizza is going to be ready faster, you're going to open up that oven. What happens when you open up that oven? You take the pizza out. Right. So what does that oven do? It recalculates the time that you lost by keeping it open that 5 seconds, so that the chicken is going to cook, that 10 seconds more or 15 seconds more, or whatever it might be, right?
So you're removing the human element, the skill.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then you needed to know what to do with the recipe where you could actually get the technology to do it for you.
Okay. So this is way back 2017, before the pandemic. You guys... Yeah. What happened? Like, was that the catalyst that really kind of launched this model for you, or was it really humming before this?
You mean the pandemic?
Yeah.
No. We were up and running and cranking it. In Chicago and Austin and Scottsdale and other cities way before.
What kind of numbers? Can you share numbers with how you were affecting your clients' bottom line, like percentages of increased revenue or more profitable? Do you have that kind of data?
Yeah, the only thing I can share is that they would be able to put another 15% to the bottom line.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is massive.
That's huge. That's
when
awesome.
You think that the average is 11 to 14% profit in a restaurant, the national average profit is between 11 and 14. When you can add up to 15% more, it's massive.
Well, you got to think one of the issues with a traditional business model is that you're limited by how much volume you can do, by one, how many seats you have, and two, what the actual ability for you to put through, like your throughput. How much food can you cook in a given period of time? If you can reduce your overhead by just creating lines, and then you basically can... The sky's the limit. It's whatever your demand is becomes your potential earning. So whatever, like, you can literally make as much as the people want. From you. So like it literally opens up the roof. It takes the roof off the house. Like there's no limit. So is that what you were finding?
Yeah, and we're also, spend a lot of time helping them and coaching them with their menus, smaller menus. Again, cross-utilization of items. Not everything travels well. And a lot of this restaurant, imagine the Cheesecake Factory, all the dishes they have. They have a massive menu. Do you think that everything travels well?
No.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
So every restaurant has a number of items that I would never send out for delivery.
So when that happens, do you just encourage the restaurant to not even make it an option for delivery? Just remove it from that?
Correct.
Don't even let there be an opportunity for a bad experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's better not having it than having it go out and be a bad experience.
Give me an example of some of these items, just in case people aren't aware that they might be running into issue if they have a plan to do a ghost kitchen and have items like this.
I think sandwiches was probably one of the biggest thing. You would get tons of great sandwiches. Especially in Chicago, I remember ordering sandwiches from one of my favorite brands out there. I'm not going to name it, but it is one of my favorite brands. And when I go over to the store, it's fantastic. It's a great experience. And then I order it for me to be delivered over to my office. And it's just like all the dressing is soaked up. No. The bottom isn't existent. You pick it up and it just falls apart. So you have to take the sandwich, turn it over, and hoping and praying for God that it doesn't just go all over the place.
Yeah.
Which it does. But so sandwiches was a massive issue. I think, a lot of things that if you don't get them when they're warm, at least, I'm not going to call it hot, but at least warm, they lose all of their interest and flavor. There's a lot of seafood that, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for delivery. Unless it's fried.
So a lot has happened since your venture with Kitchen United. You have, I think from this point on, you got involved with Miso Robotics, a bunch of other robotics companies.
Yep.
Take us real quick, like we did before with the airplane, kind of get back in that 30,000 feet and tell us what's happened since 2017.
Yeah, so this actually has a meaning because from day one, I knew exactly what I wanted. It wasn't enough for me to provide a very well designed, very well equipped, optimized space for the delivery. It was to set up the entire environment. So from A to Z, from the moment that people order to the moment that people get it delivered at home. Now, if we just focus on the space around making the food, one of the things that happens all the time is that you can go, let's just call it in a restaurant. You go to a restaurant, you fall in love with a dish, and then you go back 2 weeks later, you bring your best friends, and you say, you gotta come. We have to go and try that tortellini alla nonna, which is absolutely phenomenal. And you're so excited, and your friends are excited. They have expectation, and you show up, and guess what? The chef is not there. It's his day off, or is sick, or something. There's somebody else is making it, and it's different, right? And let's just take that to the next level. Let's take that chef that has these fantastic recipes and he's doing everything in his restaurant and the food is delicious. And now he wants to open a branch across town or in a different city or different state. He's going to hire some talents. But guess what? It happens that his dish that he has created is never represented the same way that he is making it. It's always going to be different. There's going to be somebody that doesn't make it right. Doesn't mean every day is done wrong, but some days it's not done right. And so it's a total misrepresentation of that craft, of that chef mission. That's why he sat for hour on hour upon hours designing that dish, that recipe. A human will always make a mistake. A human will always be distracted. A human would always be thinking of something or be in a rush or being afraid that he's going to be yelled at by their managers, or the waiter comes in and say, hey, where is number 10 or 12? Where's table 6? And so they get stressed and they make mistakes. So that happens constantly. Well, that doesn't happen with a machine, not with a robot, not with automation. Once you have taught the machine how to do the recipe, it will do it all the time the same exact way. So that chef knows that the integrity of his recipe will always be there, whether they're in China, Italy, Japan, or across the street.
Yeah. So at what point, what was going on internally with you to say, I need to pursue this problem? I need to solve this problem. When did that start for you?
At the very beginning of Kitchen United.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to address all of those, and I knew that I had to take it in strides. And so the space was number one.
So what was your vision if this was part of the vision, or you've identified this as part of the problem that you were trying to solve? What was the vision that you're trying to create at this point?
I wanted a line that was not necessarily fully automated, but it was working in such a way that I call it a cobotic process. As
minimal human effort as possible. For the production side.
Yes and no. I don't look at it in those terms because it's not just about cutting the labor. It's more of empowering that employee to do a better job.
Okay.
Because as I was saying,
so it's a
he
tool.
gets yelled. He gets yelled at by other people. He gets rushed by other people. He gets a phone call from their wife that got a ticket or something. So they are under constant stress. There's so many jobs that people are doing, they've been doing for 15 years. They don't even think about it because that's the only thing they know how to do. They do this tremendous, menial, very hard to do job. Think of standing in front of a grill for 8 to 10 hours a day. Their arms are burnt, and it's a really tough job. And they don't necessarily get paid tons of money. But what about that employee that becomes is not a I'm going to tell the story. I have to tell the story.
Please.
Because I'm about stories. So at Miso Robotics, when we started with Flippy, we hired a gentleman that worked for 15 years in a kitchen. And you should see his arms. They're all burnt. And, he came in and he was the guy that we used because he was so talented doing, the frying of the food to teach the machine, to teach our artificial intelligence how to make those recipes. Right? Once the machine learns from a human, then it can reproduce it. And it gets better and better and better every single time. So we brought in this gentleman and we hired him. He was our first culinary employee. So this man one night goes home. He told me this story. He goes home and he goes to his girlfriend. Hey, I got something to tell you. She goes, what? He's like, I'm not a fry cook anymore. She goes, oh, I knew it. You got fired. and he goes, no, honey, I didn't get fired. I actually have a better job. I'm getting paid a lot more. I am not a fry cook anymore. I'm a chef tech, and I work with robots.
I'm a robot programmer.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's the goosebumps again, right? It's like, imagine this man, the pride with which he said that to his girlfriend. I'm a chef tech. I work with robots. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So now we've empowered him to do a much better job. All he does to do is work with that KDS and control the machine is doing the right job, and then putting the final touches on the dish or handing over the bag to the driver or something. But he's really just looking at how the machine is performing.
So it reminds me of the role. I used to be a commercial pilot. I mean, I technically once a commercial pilot, always a commercial pilot. But the pilot's job today's they don't fly the airplane. You think the pilot's up there with two hands on the yoke, controlling altitude no, they're putting numbers into a computer and they're telling the computer what to do and monitoring. So we're moving to this point now where technology is getting to a place where your role in the kitchen is basically going to be as a technician working on the plane, telling the machines what to do and making sure that it's coming out right. So really kind of paint that picture of what this fry tech become robot tech. What a day in his life would look like. He gets to work. What's he do?
He makes sure that he stocks the storage room. So there's hoppers that contain all the different ingredients, whether it's the drumsticks or fries or all of that. Make sure that the levels are all par. Turns out the machine, making sure that, he checks all the levels of the oil and, on the fryer. But the machine is telling him, right, when you reach the level, the machine is telling them when the oil is at temperature. Because you can't drop fries. Every time that you dump a basket of fries in the dump, that the temperature is going to go down, right? Yeah. So once you take that out and you're ready to put a new one in there, that oil is not going to be at temperature. Yeah, so your fries are going to be soggy. So the machine is going to tell you when and how. No, it doesn't tell you. The machine is going to do it. The moment that the oil reaches temperature, the basket is there, and Flippy just drops it into there. He knows when to remove them. He knows when to shake them. How does
Flippy know how to do this stuff?
Well, I just told you, and they learn from that gentleman.
But is there any? So is it just time and temperature, or
no? There's sensors. Yeah, there's sensors everywhere, all types. There is laser sensors. There is camera vision. There is like 3 different places where we can measure the food based on the color, based on the temperature, based on the thickness, and so the machine has gotten so intelligent.
It's only getting better because every time it's collecting data and it's getting more and more.
Well, and it can see inside the food, which a cook cannot see.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to give you something better, because what you said about the pilots, I think that the pilot, right, the autopilot, empower the pilot to do a better job. Yeah. Right? For sure.
There's no pilot on this planet that can give you a more smooth ride than an autopilot.
Right. So this automation is empowering the cook to do a better job. And I'll give you exactly what took us to the next invention at Miso Robotics, which is called Cook Right. And Cook Right is, for lack of a better word, a navigation system for the cook. Okay. So imagine a big steakhouse, very famous steakhouse where the steaks are $60, $80, $100, $120, right? And you go into one of those kitchens, let's call it a Del Frisco Double Eagle Steakhouse.
Got it.
They have 30 steaks at any given time on that grill.
Wow.
And who do they have? They have someone that's been so talented for 20 years that's been working on that grill. Still, right? They make a mistake, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because they have 10 different type of meat.
Yeah.
The grill is different temperatures in different areas, right? And so there's so many variable on that grill, not just the thickness, but the timing, the type of cooking. Somebody wants it medium, somebody wants medium rare, and so on. And so the cook has to keep this in mind. And of course they make mistakes, right? That's why when you go over to Del Frisco, they come over to the table and say, hey, can you cut into the steaks just to make sure it's cooked to your likings? And do you know how many steaks get thrown away every night? A lot.
I bet.
A lot.
Yeah.
because those places serve 600-700 people a night.
Yeah, and if it's not perfect, it's not going out.
Well, or it comes back and then it goes in the trash, or
Yeah.
the waiters eat it,
Exactly.
which I hope they do.
Yeah.
Because they deserve it.
Yeah.
But what happens there is that it takes one or two of these people constant concentration the whole entire night, and of course they're gonna make mistake because they're human.
Yeah.
And if somebody takes a break and goes to the bathroom and the other guy is watching over, it's like, oh, I can't keep in mind what this guy had in mind. So it's very tentative, right? So it's still very human and it's prone to many, many, many mistakes. Now, what's Cookright? Cookright is the navigational system. So you have a KDS, you have, and I'm sorry, I'm using my hands, so people can't see me.
You're Italian.
But you have a KDS in front of you,
Yeah.
and the cook, all they have to do is just look at a KDS and they see a grid, right?
Yeah.
And they can see that there is a steak. Let's call it a ribeye on A3 that needs to be turned because it's been, it's cooked to the point that it needs to be cooked, needs to be turned. And then it goes B7, it's a fillet and it's done, and they need to remove it and let it sit so that it bleeds out before they put it on the plate and they send it out. That's all the stuff that a person needs to keep in mind and what they need to do. Now you have a machine that controls all 30 different steaks on the grill, and it tells the employees by color and by prompting, you need to remove A7, you need to turn B6, you need to do this, that. Tell me that that's not empowering that employee to do a better job.
I mean, you can't
they know
argue.
what to do. You can't mess.
You're using infrared. I'm sure you can see to the inside of that steak where it is.
Yep.
Like, you can't beat that. You can't.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't argue what you're saying. Right.
You can see what's on that grill, because that grill in the corner or where you just took a steak out is not going to be as hot as you think it might be. So you need to calculate that for the timing that steak is going to sit on that grill.
Yeah.
So that's what Cookright does. And so that's empowering an employee to do a better job. So it's not a stress when people's like, where's A6? Refire. It's a mess. I mean, if you work in a kitchen, you know the kind of intensity that goes on in there.
Yeah. So we got about 25 minutes left together. I'm not going to do a speed round through. I'd rather keep this free-flowing portion going to the very end. I want to discuss the economics of this, what it costs, where you're saving, realistically, who is this type of technology in reach of? I want to answer that question. And also, what's the future look like? Where are we going? How soon are we going to be there? What do we need to know? We're going to answer that when we come right back. All right, we are back. And I really just want to understand economics. What does it cost for me to get involved? If I want to open a restaurant tomorrow that has all these tools these tools that make us better chefs. It's these aids to the cook, right? If I want to implement that in my restaurant tomorrow, what's it going to cost?
It depends on the concept. It depends on the type of machines that you need. But my goal, and it's a goal that I share amongst a lot of people that work in this industry along with me, is not to sell these machines. It's to put the machines in the hands of our fellow restaurant people. That's a mission for us.
Yeah.
We don't want to sell them a machine for $100,000. We want to give a machine and say, go ahead and use it. At the end of the month, you pay us a SaaS fee that takes care of the maintenance, takes care of the upgrades, of the updates, of changing the menu and this and that and that and that. And then, of course, it's a lease. So we're leasing you a machine.
So yeah, you're okay. So that makes sense. You want to get the barrier of entry as low as possible. You don't have to pay up front. We're going to help you. Just pay us every month.
Yep.
What's one unit approximately? Like what's that bill per month approximately? Ballpark. I know you can't give us a cut.
Yeah, no.
What are we expecting?
Yeah, I want to say it's anywhere between $2,500 and $3,500 a month.
Okay.
And once you realize that you can cut down your labor by at least $15,000 a month.
Well, that was my next question. How much are you saving per month on labor, and what's that bounce out?
Yeah, so the numbers I just gave you right now are numbers that I just did for one of our new partners, and I cranked it out to where if he pays us $3,200 a month, we can save him $15,000, right around $15,000 a month.
Is this $3,200 a month? Does that include maintenance fees?
Correct.
So if my stuff breaks down, you send a technician.
Correct.
I don't have to pay a single dime.
There is, so that's, there's also part of warranties, there's warranties in it. But there's also regular scheduled maintenance once a month. People come in and they make sure that the machine is all, but it's also a constantly monitored machine 24 hours a day. It knows everything that happens, everything that, let's say the refrigerator starts acting up and the compressor kicks in like 10 seconds earlier. We know what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. So he's going to send out a message to the operator and say, hey, go clean the filter for that for the compressors, because most likely he's not getting enough air. Yeah. And that's why it's heating up, and that's why it's kicking in. So would the
restaurant owner do this, or would a tech come in and manage this?
No. To clean a filter, yes, that's what, the operator will get a message from us to say, hey, you need to do this or you need to do that.
And how's the training associated with this tool? Like, do I
all
go to miso.com and there's like a step-by-step on how to clean the filter or whatever?
No, we inserted into the standard operating procedures for the employees that has to tend to it.
Okay. So there's just, you also do the training around this too. So you're not just like saying, here's your $100,000 machine, smack on the ass, go get them. You're providing tools and resources too.
Correct. And the best part is this. Because the operator is really the one that needs to understand how these machines work. We don't just create these machines in a closed room. We go out and we find partners, and we develop this machine along with them.
Okay.
So when we talk about Flippy, we went out and found an amazing partner, which is White Castle. And when we started working with them, we were frying 2 items for White Castle. Now we're frying 21 different items.
Wow.
That's because of their expertise. They told us what they needed and what we needed to do for them. And so now they just gave us a contract for 100 locations, right? So that's really the value that you get by cooperating with them. Same thing for Piestro with 800 degrees. We're reproducing their own recipes. So it's so invaluable to be able to work with them so that we can actually get the machine targeted to do what they really need.
Yep. So you have for 30 whatever your monthly rate is. Let's call it 32,000 a month approximately. 3,200?
3,200.
Okay, even better. Wow. Jesus, why did I think that? 3,200 a month. What about like parts? What if a part breaks? Is that covered in this 3,200 a month?
Those are part of the warranties.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to economics, is there anything I'm missing? Common questions you get, things we need to factor in when we're trying to make this decision?
No, you really need to look at a spreadsheet and see the machine working and see that the machine does what you need to do, and then how many employees you can remove from that. You can calculate what your waste is and what it would be with a machine, which is almost nil.
Does my insurance go up when I put one of these machines in my apartment? Is a Flippy gonna decapitate somebody?
No.
Okay, with the spatula, not by accident.
We're all NSF approved. I mean, to get into that field, we had to really go through some rigorous, certifications, all of that. So no, everything is, the safety of a room. You cannot get into the space of Flippy. Because Flippy will stop immediately. Besides the fact that there are some blockers, there are some screens, so you can get into it.
Getting Flippy into, how big is Flippy? Is Flippy like are there restrictions on where this thing fits?
It depends. Yeah. What brand are you?
Well, I don't know. Like if I have if I'm working in Boston, or New York City, and my kitchen is in the basement of there's tight.
Yeah, no,
am I gonna get it in there?
No, it gets built in the space.
Okay, so
it gets assembled overnight in one night.
I'm just trying to think about anything that might be a roadblock that I'm not considering that might be an issue for somebody to consider.
No, and again, the sizes are different, right? So what we're doing with White Castle is it's the same concept, but it's one machine. What we're doing with Chipotle, I'm sure you've seen last week, we're only doing their chips, the fresh chips, and the salt and the lime and the frying of them. So it's different than what we're doing for White Castle. With Buffalo Wild Wings, it's wingy.
Yeah.
It's not flippy. It's wingy. For Chipotle, is chippy.
Yeah.
So that is very different. But the machines have become smaller and smaller. When we started, we're much bigger. It would have been hard to get to retrofit a restaurant. So if we were building a new restaurant, it would have been easy to just install it. And
can I reserve Zoni if I ever open a calzone restaurant?
Yes.
Could you just put that on a reserve for me?
Yes.
You heard it here. I called it. So one other thought I was curious about, something I want to bring to the conversation. I lost it. It's gone. Where'd it go? I should have written it down.
But you asked me earlier, what's that one important thing that I want people to get? That's really the mission.
Yeah.
To getting machines into the hands of the operators, because they're me.
Yeah.
They're all me. I feel like I'm in the same place, and I was in the same place. And I know if I can provide something that empowers them to do a better job and getting more money stuck to their bottom and providing them a machine without an upfront cost that is untouchable, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. So the question that just came back into my mind, do you need to answer that?
No.
Okay. The question that just came back into my mind is there a concept that this works best in, as far as like what is the ideal restaurant for Flippy?
Well, a big burger chain, right?
Yeah.
That would be.
I'm thinking one thing really well, like doing one thing really well. Like you don't want Flippy to be doing a bunch of different things. Do you want it to execute a menu with like 250 items on it?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, it has to be, if you're doing burgers and fries and then all the fried food, great. That's perfect. Like, so White Castle is perfect. But
got it.
But just think, when we spoke to Chipotle, they were like, yeah, we love what you're doing, but if you can fix this for us right now and do the chips, that's a massive win for us.
Yeah.
So we went out and did it.
One thing at a time, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure that we're going to be working with them on a lot of other things. We have a couple of other big brands that are about to be dropped in the next, 2 weeks, and then again in another 4 weeks.
So what do you mean by big brands? Like restaurants or new robotics?
No. Brands of restaurants that we're going to be working with.
And every time
specifically Miso Robotics going to be working with.
And every time you solve a problem for a restaurant, you create a solution for a restaurant, you can use that solution in other verticals, other restaurants. So you're only going to get better, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So one thing I did want to talk about before we say goodbye, what's the future look like, man? What's like a lot of people who are listening to this, they're like, what about jobs? What's going to happen when restaurants are losing jobs to robotics? Like where are people going to get their money? What's the future look like?
Who says they were losing jobs to robotics?
Well, some people might. I'm not saying that,
yeah,
but like that argument, what's the answer?
Right, and it's a question that I get asked every single time,
Yeah.
and I have my answer, and it's a pretty long answer, but we don't take jobs. We actually create jobs.
Yes.
Our industry has created more jobs recently than any other industry, because you need people that need to design, they need to do R&D, they need to build them, they need to maintain them, they need to install them, they need to reprogram, and we have people that stay on it as a constant monitoring 24 hours a day to look at what these machines are doing. So we have created a number of jobs that are for the production and maintenance of this machine.
How many?
Now,
sorry, go on.
Go back to the restaurant. Yes, maybe we took one person out of that line or two people out of that line, but what we have done is that we have created a job for that one person that's on there that's getting paid more. It has a better job. It's a much better longevity. You don't have the turnover of the employees, so you save money there. You have a lot less waste, so you have a better return, which means that you can pay your people more. And then because of all the issues that are going on right now where you cannot find staff for your restaurant, what you're going to do, you can take the best employees that you have, the one that love you, that haven't left you because they drank the Kool-Aid, they are your biggest fan, and you take those people and you put them out front and you let them interact with your guest and create that hospitality because they love your restaurant. They love everything that you do. Now, they don't have to do the hard jobs anymore. They can do the fun jobs of being out there interacting with the consumer.
Are you familiar with the term resource-based economy?
No.
It's this idea that things like food and shelter eventually are going to be free because of this idea that most jobs are going to be gone. Most jobs that are basic jobs are going away, like cooks, dishwashers. These remedial jobs that are entry-level jobs are going away, so there's going to be less opportunity. You might be creating better jobs, but are there going to be as many jobs is the question, because we can do much more with less, right? So if that is the trend, what's the government going to do to compensate for these people? Are we going to reach a place where things like food and shelter are free because that's the only way to compensate for those who can't get jobs?
I don't believe in that. I don't share that enthusiasm for it. I think that we are constantly going to create new jobs, and I believe that there is a net that is positive of jobs that we have created versus the one that we've taken away.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing if we hit a resource-based economy and things like food and shelter are free. If you look at that, those are the most basic needs. When you're paying somebody, most of their money is going towards food and shelter, like their liability, the things they need to survive.
Sure, but what does that for the intellect?
What does it do for the intellect?
Yeah.
So the argument is that if you have people who no longer have to go to work and worry about dumping fries and picking fries up and flipping burgers, what human bandwidth are you opening for potential to solve world problems? How much human energy and mental bandwidth is lost to that?
Well, I think we've seen what happened during COVID. The people were staying home and watching Netflix and play PlayStation. And then when the restaurants reopen and the employers ask them to come back to work, they say, I'm sorry, I don't want to do that crappy job anymore.
Yeah.
They don't want to do the job. When you look at Starbucks that's closing at 1:30 in the afternoon in New York City because they don't have employees, it's crazy.
Yeah.
When you look at a company like Papa John that is incredibly successful and it has to close early at night because they don't have enough employees, that is crazy. And it's happening everywhere. You can't find a busboy in Hollywood for $20 an hour. Mm-hmm. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. I can't remember. I struggle wrapping my mind around it too. I really do. I mean, we're getting close to the end of our time here. I did want to make sure we didn't talk about your other projects. Miso isn't your only, venture. You're involved in other robotics companies. Do you want to get those out now?
Well, yeah, Piestro for sure, because my baby,
Yeah.
The dream of having a machine that makes a fantastic, delicious pizza, fresh right in front of you, right?
Can we get one of these things while we're in town? Where do we go to get one of these?
No,
pizzas?
you can't get it yet.
Man,
No. It's we have set a few machine into our corporate partners, and we're testing it along with them because, again, we need to be perfect when we go out, because it's not good enough to have a robot that makes pizza if the pizza is not delicious, right? You're not gonna go back. You're gonna have it once because it's fun, but then you're never gonna go back. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. But the fact that you can go and stand in front of a machine and you can watch the ingredient that you picked falling onto your pizza and they go in the back and get cooked, cut and boxed, and you can get it in less than 3 minutes. That's fantastic.
So is Piestro the name of the robot, or is that the name of the brand that's going to be surrounding the robot?
We have a band, but I don't recommend that you go listen to that. Just kidding. No, Piestro is, we're a wide label for brands.
Got it.
So it's not important for us to put out a Piestro pizza.
Yeah.
That's not what we want to do.
So
we want to create a solution for each one of the brands that we work with.
So where can I find one of these? Is there a goal, a date on the calendar that you think this thing's going to be operating?
Yeah, you'll see them out early next year. Most likely it will be under the brand 800 Degrees.
Yeah. Do you have one of these things do you have a calzone
I don't
Estro yet?
I don't have a calzestro.
A zone Estro yet?
Yeah, no, I don't have one of those
I want to be part of that development when that happens.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I've had a lot of fun talking to you. One question I ask all my guests before we say goodbye, the mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. What do you think needs to transform in our industry? Where do we need to go? How can we be better?
I think this has been talked over and over and over in the last few months, is to really understand that our employees are the best thing we can possibly have, and we need to foster their growth. We need to, when we hire them, we need to talk to them and show them where they can go. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be same job over and over for the next 10, 15 years. One thing that I always told everyone that I hire was, show me your colors and I'll paint you a picture.
I love that.
I really want to be able to show people where they can go and what they can do. And even when people are non-believer, like our good friend, all good friend Jason, that was a non-believer, became one of the most talented people, surpassed me in every possible way. And I am just very grateful that I was able to get him to stick around and apply his talent to this industry, because he's brought a lot to this industry. He's a smart dude.
He's talking about Jason Berkowitz, past guest on the show. I had Jason on the show the last time I was in LA. I think that was in the 600s or maybe early 700s episodes. If you guys want to just check out Jason Berkowitz if you want to listen to his story, really great guy. One of the reasons why I'm here talking to you. Jason said I needed to talk to you. Then Troy Hooper called you out on the episode that we recorded while we were out here. We were able to connect with you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Let me ask you, who do you respect and admire? And if they were a guest on the show tomorrow, you'd be like, ooh, I want to listen to what this person has to say. Who's that for you? That's why you're here.
Yeah. It's not that I want to listen to him, because I listen to him every single day for hours and hours. But I think that your audience would probably get a kick to talk to one of the most talented, one of the most passionate, one of the, I call him my best friend. His name is Jeffrey Carlton. He's my co-founder at Kitchen United.
Okay.
He is the man that transformed Las Vegas from a gambling town to a destination for the greatest chefs in the world coming into Las Vegas. And that's when people started going to Vegas to actually have amazing food. He was in charge of the chef collection at the Wynn, Open Bellagio with Steve Wynn and the whole entire team over there. But he's transformed the industry many times over. And to be honest with you, Kitchen United would never have happened if it wasn't for Jeffrey Carlton.
Jeffrey Carlton, look out. I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. And how can we connect with you or one of your companies if we want to learn more?
Go on LinkedIn. You'll see. I'm very open on LinkedIn. I interact with people. I am one of the people that is joyful, that is excited every time I see somebody accomplishing something.
Yeah.
I love to cheer for people, even if people might think that they're in competition with what we do, but I never really thought of competition as anything better than helping us getting better, improving ourselves, and challenge us to become better people and better operators and better parents and better friends and so on. But I love going on LinkedIn and seeing people signing deals and doing this and coming up with a great idea and starting new businesses. That's exciting to me. That's why I go on LinkedIn.
I love that. And Miso Robotics is misorobotics.com. Pretty straightforward. Does Piestro have a website?
Yeah, piestro.com.
Piestro.com. And we'll link to those in the show notes as well. And we'll have your LinkedIn link right there in the show notes as well. We mentioned the episode number at the beginning of today's show. So whatever the episode number is, head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/that number. We'll have a summary of today's discussion, as well as any tools, services mentioned in today's show over there waiting for you. Thank you so much, Massimo, for coming on the show, for sharing your story. We are so much better after listening to you. There is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Cacciatore. Thank you for hunting me down.
My pleasure. Cheers.